hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, or if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz. This is the T54E1, and welcome to channel if this is your first time here. Remember to like, subscribe, enjoy the view, and smell the flowers as you walk along Blitz's multiverse pathways. Now, if that doesn't make a lot of sense to you, this tank may indeed baffle you even further. This is the T54E1, and the reason it may baffle you is because people tell you this tank is bad. They'd be very, very wrong. In fact, this is a low-slung, strong man of Tier 9. The reason being that it's actually one of the best autoloaders you can get at this tier. It's, along with the AMX 5120, it's probably the most fearsome autoloader you're going to run up against. The Batchat has the same kind of output, but the T54E1, in fact, got nerfed because its auto-loading potential was too high. Too much auto-loading, they said. What do I mean by that? Well, it used to have a 105mm gun that did a proper 105mm round, i.e. 350 alpha. And you could pump out a monumental 1050 per clip. And they touched that down to 310, the same kind of alpha you get on the Batchat, the same kind of alpha you get on all the 105mm auto-loading guns. Which is an odd one, but that's how they balance the tank out. And if you don't believe me, watch these two games from our good amigos Pure Wal Harminder and his compatriot in T54E1 Love, Ornelis NL. I don't know how to pronounce the last bit. I don't know how he wants it done. The 54E1 is part of a line that really doesn't know whether it's Arthur, Martha, Wally, or Dolly. It's quite confusing. It has light tanks, then it goes into medium tanks and back into lights, and then it finishes with a medium and then a heavy tank, the T57 Heavy, which is a fearsome clipping tank at tier 10 with a lovely 2.5 second reload, which is quite a bit under the reload of the AMX 50B, which is pretty cool. It allows it to clip out 300-400 alpha rounds in 5 seconds, which is 1200 damage in 5 seconds, which is a lot of damages. It's also a lot more mobile than given credit for. This tank looks large, cumbersome, and generally not the attractive number that you expect in a Tier 9 medium. Look at tanks like the M46 Patton and the Leopard PTA and the T54 and even the E50 has a certain German je ne sais quoi. But the 54E1 is quite stodgy by comparison. It's not the sexiest looking vehicle, but it certainly does have the ability to pop. And by pop, I mean dump 930 average alpha inside of 5 seconds, or around 5 seconds. 2.5 seconds is the shell reload time. And that's pretty impressive. It really can pump out the numbers. And you can see here that when it's used as a clipper, it's incredibly effective. Now, if you are good at clipping out, then you are going to get a lot of love out of this tank. And what is clipping out? Clipping out is spotting targets that are under the average alpha roll or at the average alpha roll for your 3 shells and unloading all 3 shells into them to clear a tank. They're really used in competitive play clippers to clear a gun. If you can get a clipper working in concert with another tank, you can quite often clear an entire gun, and that's a really valuable thing when you're running around trying to win games. The 54E1 doesn't get the same kind of credit that you get in the 57 Heavy or the AMX 50B or the Batchat because, well, for starters, Tier 9 doesn't get any real competitive play. Tier 8 and then the big dog is Tier 10 is where most of the competitive scene happens. But you can see our amigo here is doing brilliantly to work the numbers, and a tank that doesn't look like it's got any real mobility is actually moving around quite handily. In fact, the traverse speed when buffed on this thing is about 70 degrees. The traverse speed on the turret is about 43 degrees. And the top speed of the tank overall is a surprising 44 kilometers an hour, but it gets there quite reasonably. So for a tank that doesn't look like it moves and doesn't look like it does a lot of damage with a 310 alpha ground, it does all of the above. You can see there the mastery badge for Pure Wal Harminder. high caliber, the spotting medal as well, giving him a lot of XP and a great little game. That's an M46 pattern. Now, it's got the stock turret, so there's every chance that the gun is the crap gun and it's not moving that quick. But this thing is getting out there. I mean, it is really decently mobile. And traverse-wise, nothing's going around you. In fact, it can COD really, really well. It can struggle a little bit on the pen front, but that's only against tier 10 targets. Comparatively speaking to its peers, its tier 10 medium peers, you're a lot better off driving this than, say, you are in an E50 or a T54 or an M46 pattern. All those tanks have inferior pen to the T54E1. And they also don't have the same degree of gun depression. You get 8 degrees of gun depression in the 54E1. Clipping is an interesting business. Autoloaders who clip out are interesting because generally they try and front load damage. So you've got a whole buttload of damage coming out. In this case, nearly 1,000 damage when you pop all 3 in a clip. And you can see what's happening here with this RU251. He just copped a bunch of auto-loaded shells and it really tore him up. But the 54E1 is interesting because it doesn't really lose out in the DPM stakes. It's right around the same DPM as the E50. In fact, it's above the DPM of a couple of the other little numbers that are out there, like the 61, the WZ120, the Centurion 701. Cent 701 obviously with Hesh can go a little bit higher. But the theory here is that you don't lose a lot. You've got enough DPM in just terms of raw burn power, but you also get the choice of dumping your DPM off all at once and then hiding and playing peekaboo. You only have to expose yourself realistically for 5 seconds, and you can get that in between shots on tanks like IS-5s or pretty much anything. Like 5 seconds is a very, very short period of time. The other thing is, like, much like the whole American tank thing where it's vanilla tanks, tanks that do very, very well in a lot of categories but don't dominate any particular category, that speaks exactly to what you've got here. It's got gun depression, it's got great turning ability, it can turn fight really well, it's got great peekaboo burst DPM, but it's also got good sustained DPM up at 2710 damage per minute. All in all, I mean, you can see if you get time on target here at all, you can bounce people. The armor profile's nothing to write home about, but you've got enough armor to peek and boom and be awkward for tier 8 tanks, and at tier 9, if they push up on you, they're going to cop an absolute serve, and you won't struggle to put shots in, as you can see here. 1, 2, 3, and then just get the hell out of dodge. It's a really crazy kind of concept, but this is a strong medium tank that's also unique and covers off on a really versatile range of pros and cons. When it first came out, I didn't like it a lot, and I've really come round to the 54E1. Whenever I've driven this, and even the T69, I've done really well. And you can see our amigo here, Korn, is monstering tanks all over the place, loading up on tanks that are sub an average alpha roll and just dumping them, and then hitting the reload button so you've got another 3 in the pipe is the perfect way to play an autoloader. I also want to mention something here. Autoloaders are strong not just because they have good DPM or they have the ability to pump off 3 in a row. They're good because DPM is an overrated stat when there's no DPM needed. You saw there, Korn dumped to clear that Centurion 701, and then there was no target for a good 40 seconds. And while there was no target, he completely reloaded. So all he's really worried about is his burst DPM in that situation, and it doesn't disadvantage the tank when he's running up a tank like a T54 or even an Object 140 or a T62A who have mad DPM, but they only get to use it when the target's available. What you want to do in a tank like the T54E1 is use that raw burst and then don't be seen again. It's a lot like the way you play a bat chat, but it's just a tougher version of the bat chat with more hit points, better gun depression, and an overall more effective way of putting that fire in. It loses out on the top end super duper speed and the light tank camo. So you've got to have other positives there, and you do. You get that gun depression, you get that bigger hit point pool, you get better penetration numbers than you do on the tier 9 bat chat. Those are all the things that make the tank profitable. And you can see here, he's just dumping whole wads of alpha into this poor old bloke over there and then hiding behind a rock. So he really doesn't have to worry about anything apart from when he's reloaded. And then he just goes out and does it all over again. It's a really interesting playstyle. And it's something that draws good players to these tanks because they have something that you can exploit, i.e. burst damage. Underestimate this tank at your peril, the T54E1. It makes a lot of sense to get good at driving these tanks. And as we move past spare parts and into a world where you can drive whatever you want and just use credits to buy equipment, you're going to get less popular tanks like the 54E1 and the VK4502B and, you know, these tanks that people don't really pay a lot of attention to now because they didn't dump spare parts into them. So they're playing your stock standard good tank for that tier because that's all you could afford to play at a max level. You're going to see tanks like this flourish and blossom, and lines that weren't really given the attention they deserved previously get a lot more attention now. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing for the game. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like doing videos like this and videos about KV5s and video about tanks that maybe people don't realize are so cool. Because we're all going to have the opportunity to fully max out these tanks now and achieve greatness. Love it. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Remember to like, subscribe, share the videos, and generally just be a pest out there on the battlefield. And until next time, bye for now.